Yes, people, how you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. Hope you're all okay. Not just the Spurs Talk Show, Football Inc., of course, and also over on the Twitter sphere with Jonny H 3232. How are you, Jonny? Good to see you, mate.
I'm all right. I'm okay. Been a long time, Shawnee. You look different, mate. You look different. You look younger for all the stress and harassment. Huh?
I've had a few weeks off to you know what's going on. Same old nonsense. But yeah, the angle's different. I'm on the only device in my house that is currently capable, if that, of streaming, and it's
apart
an
from
iPad.
Your toaster. Apart from the toaster.
My smart toaster is part of the problem, by the way. I genuinely do have a smart washing machine, a Samsung washing machine, which I'd forgotten about when I was doing my my ransacking, and the washing machine is a back door. So you got the front door for your clothes, and you got the back door for the hackers. You know, it is what it is. So the Samsung washing machine is going to have to go. But it's good to be back, mate. It's good to be back. For how long, I don't know. But I want to say massive thank you to everyone for the messages and all that, and for the support, ongoing as always. And I'm trying to juggle these things with trying to get back. So apologies for the absence. And listen, I don't feel like I've missed very much. I literally haven't seen too much in the way of Tottenham, Jonny. So a lot of the stream tonight is going to be me asking you questions. I've seen a lot of the fallout, the feedback. I've seen a lot of the Ange commentary. I've seen a lot of the here's and the whats and the whys and all that stuff. But yeah, I've got a lot to say in the last 3 weeks. I haven't streamed since I think the beginning of March, and so in that time I've missed both of the Europa League games, the Fulham game, the Bournemouth game. I'm not sure if there was another one. So lots of ups and lots of ups, lots of downs in the Tottenham sphere, mate. We've got some transfer news, views, and clues as well to get on. We've got the Swedish revolution. ABBA is continuing to build. We've got the Rooney Bargy story to get through. We've also got. I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but I only thought it was just a funny name. There's a lady who's retired today from the Tottenham Hotspur ladies team, and his name is Siri Worm. No disrespect,
Sean.
What's that, mate?
Oh, there you're back. You're back.
Oh, I disappeared, did I?
Yeah.
Did you hear the name though? Siri Worm is the lady's name. Who listen, for those of you that are interested in cybersecurity, be wary of Siri. Siri is part of the problem as well, and it is a bit of a worm into the zeitgeist. But she is retired from Tottenham Hotspur. Jonny, mate, what's been going on at Tottenham, mate? What's been going on, buddy? Fill me in, mate. Fill me in.
How do you recap? Listen, it's been shit, and more shit. And then there was the real shit when we were in AZ Alkmaar away, where we didn't turn up and the fan base imploded. And then we had the return leg where, we ran out 3-1 winners. I wouldn't say it was comfortable in the last 10 minutes. I think a few people were hiding behind the sofa. And
wouldn't be a Tottenham game if it wasn't like that, would it?
Yeah, no. Then we had all the born again Anjin fans who thought the second coming had come and everything was suddenly all rosy in the garden again. But really, it was a sticking plaster on a gaping wound. And as so it transpired when we played Bournemouth, and then when we played Fulham, got out of jail at Bournemouth and didn't really turn up at Fulham. 19 defeats, Sean, this season with 11 games to go.
Yeah.
35 defeats since November the 5th when we were about to play Chelsea, unbeaten, sat at the top of the table. It's hard to be... Look,
I heard a rumour, Jonny. Not a rumour, a stat, that it's possible that Tottenham could lose 30 games this season and still lift the Europa League.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, right? It's possible.
Not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Even we can't lose to Southampton, he says knowingly with his fingers crossed. That's not going to happen. Listen, the stat is bad enough without us, plummeting to new depths. I go every week hoping to see us win. The people that come at me and, you know, when I say, you know, I can't take any more of Ange Ball, you've got to understand I'm just one of thousands who, you know, go to games home and away. And you've got to understand our frustration and our upset when we see performances like that. And quite honestly, Ange's reaction to the fan that shouted, "What is that shit?" should not have been for a man of his age to have responded and to that in any shape, way, or form. He should have just carried on and went into the dressing room. And
he definitely feels like a man who is who's crumbling. I don't know. He looks like he's struggling, is the best word I can think of, to handle the onslaught from the fans, from the media. The last press conference that I saw, Johnny, was one of a guy whose his entire patience with the process of doing media, post game, pre game, whatever. It just looks like it's worn thin on him, and that he's over it. You know, it almost feels like he doesn't care about losses anymore. Like the way he reacted after the Fulham game. Look, yeah, I mean, look, tough game, shouldn't have lost, but we did. It kind of felt like he's waiting for the nail or for the hammer to fall as well, right? And it's it's problematic, mate.
Yeah, did you not think though, when you're looking at the Friday the ramble? No, it wasn't a rant, was it? It was a meandering ramble. What
about you know, it wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be criticised in any other walk of life.
That where he said, "I'm not bothered, you know, about the pressure. I don't feel pressure." You know,
salesman talk, isn't it? Salesman talk.
Yeah, I mean, I have every confidence in what I do. I don't feel the pressure because I know if I leave here, I'll get another job.
That's outrageous, by the way.
Well, that, and then all the ramble that went on afterwards is that, you know, for me, his mouth is saying one thing and his actions are saying something else. That reaction to that person who shouted, "What was that shit?" If you don't care, you walk straight into the dressing room. You know, we're taught as kids. You know, that when someone calls you names, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Turn the other cheek." Right? This is a guy who's 58, 59 years of age. He's been in the game for long enough. He's been used to confrontation from his Aussie days when he was.
That was a long time ago, mate. He has. I think a lot of it is bravado, ego, and pride. Well, I think it's actually it's definitely a little bit of ego, but I actually think that the kind of predominant part of his personality that's on show at the moment is that his pride is hurt, and I don't think he's used to. Or not, at least it's not in his recent history. He had the experience in the past with those press conferences, with the Australian team when he had it out on air and all that stuff. There's a bit of ego, but his pride is really dented, and I think that the kind of proximity to failure for him is so far away that he's just not used to being on A, under this much of the spotlight, and B, he doesn't. I don't think he's used to or recently familiar with how to handle the heat. And not that he handled it particularly well back in the day, but right now it looks like a guy that's kind of bathing in the recent past of his, where he never had any of that shit at Celtic. He didn't have it in Japan, as far as I'm aware, and probably didn't have it in the last few years of his time at Australia because he was successful. But that's a long time, like 8-9 years since you've been under the heat, mate, and now you're getting it. And his it's almost churlish, it's almost childish, the inability to be able to like man up and be honest and accept the kind of, at least acknowledge the kind of pressure that he's under. But he's like you say, he's on one hand he's saying it doesn't bother me, but every part of his act right now looks like a man that is cracking because it does bother him. He is butt hurt, pride hurt, and he's not used to this feeling of being criticised and critiqued for his faux pas.
Should you be coming back at fans? when things aren't going right.
Never. You should never be coming back at fans. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
And he's done it repeatedly. He's done it on a few occasions. You know, what is the Ange rant of the month? You know, this is a guy who basically strolled into Tottenham Hotspur under so much toxicity, and yet he was a breath of fresh air when he came in. Let's be honest, he was a breath of fresh air. You know, this happy chappy, you know, with the Ange Ball philosophy. The press loved him. It was all great. And then, you know, we had that start, as I said, up till November the 5th, 2023, when, you know, we lost the players. We finished with 9 men. And where there's that famous picture with all 9 on the, 8 on the halfway line. It's who we are, mate. And where now we forward wind to where we are now. And here is a man who looks totally broken, a guy who looks like he needs, you know, some happy pills, a guy who's, you know, who's not so happy at the interviews and is snapping, asking people why they're asking these questions. And yet he protests that you know, he's not bothered and what have you. Listen, look, I don't actually blame Ange in the sense, I mean, I don't think he's up to it, but I don't blame Ange, because who wouldn't take the job at Tottenham Hotspur? Because, you know, you can't really lose here. If you win a trophy here, you'll be known as one of the greats of all time.
Like Eddie Howe at Newcastle, right?
Yeah.
They're going to put a statue up on that guy. You know?
And if you get the sack, you're guaranteed to leave the club and go to somewhere else and win a trophy. It's not all bad. It's not all bad, because that's inadvertently what happens, whether it's a player. You know, it's happening.
Yeah, but again, like this notion, I know where you're going to go with it, and not to cut you off, mate. And again, my promise to myself this time.
I just want to finish that.
Sorry.
I blame the fact that Daniel appointed Scott Munn, whose background is Olympics and cycling and what have you. And after a 4-month search, he's come up with his mate, who he knows has got a history with, Ange Postecoglou. Now, the fact of the matter is, I mean, if you ask the vast majority of fans who had a list of replacements after Mourinho and a Conte, Ange Postecoglou was never on that list. And, you know, for me, I think it was a huge mistake. And I said so at the time, but I thought, you know what, I have to embrace this, because for the greater good of the club and wanting Spurs to do well. But
it didn't matter who we got, though, mate. It didn't matter whether you got Jesus Christ himself or Muhammad or whoever your flavour is. It wouldn't have mattered. I've said this from day one, and I hate to give myself pats on the back, right? Because it's not my style to say I told you so. But like the guy before the guy was always going to be the way this played out. It always was. But you know what? Rome wasn't built in a day, Johnny, and it was a necessary stepping stone to pivot away from. I've said this before. Just like in politics, the US political example is the best, right? Because it's everyone, wherever you are in the world, will be able to kind of, you probably have dialed in your whichever country you're in, you probably are aware of what's happening in American politics. But for my entire lifetime, the establishment, whoever they are, Democrat or Republican, whether it's, you know, McCain or Bush or Obama or Biden or Trump, whatever, in fact, not including Trump, when the two sides of the same horseshoe, the two wings of the same bird, when they say this time we're changing for the better, this time it's different, and it never is. If the establishment are using the rhetoric of change, and you know, and you're bored of hearing it, but it never manifests in anything real, and in Tottenham's terms, that looks like success, that looks like investment, that looks like ambition, all those key terms, keywords that I struggle to get on board with anyway. But generally speaking, it takes a populist figure to say something extreme to capture the imagination, because
that's what Conte did, right?
Exactly. If you're just saying the same thing as the establishment, the status quo always says anyway, you're never going to capture the imagination. So that's where populism comes from. Adolf Hitler, as bad a guy as that was, he was saying something extreme, right? And you cherry pick anywhere in Eastern Europe, anywhere where where the pendulum swings one direction, you can't look like it's different when the status quo says it's different, unless it actually is violently different. And when you come from Conte and Mourinho and Nuno, which is little pivots back and forth on the analogy and on the thesis, the philosophy of football, you needed something like Ange, even though it wasn't going to work. Rome wasn't built in a day, but you needed a violent swing towards something different for it to actually look different, and to contend with this notion of movement to a different philosophy. And he was too far. He is too far that direction. The absence of any defence, the absence of any interest in analysis of the opposition is obviously wrong and obviously foolish.
Yeah,
but
it's all
the next guy's gonna inherit something that has pivoted in the right direction, but he was the wrong guy. But it didn't matter who you picked. It was always going to be wrong.
Sean, I hear you, Sean, but I think we pivoted so far in the other direction that we plummeted so low that he's taken us to a point that's even lower than any point with Conte. Because let's be honest, when Conte left, we were in 4th place. My point here is he's come with a philosophy, and that's all he's come with. He's come with a philosophy that isn't matched by his football. What is Ange ball? I haven't seen Ange ball. I've seen Ange ball in the last few weeks, months, and that was the 3rd goal against AZ Alkmaar. Okay, that was a bit of Ange ball, but he's changed. He's become this pragmatic guy who talks the game but doesn't deliver it. He's now delivering some other game of football. And I hear what you're saying about the pivot, and I hear what you're saying, the guy before the guy. My point here is he was never good enough to be in this position. And you know, who
should have been the guy then, Johnny? Who should have been the guy that was different enough?
Listen, we didn't have to go. We did not need to go, Sean, from Mourinho to Ange Postecoglou. I'm sorry, I can't agree with you.
Hold on. What I'm saying, I think I maybe haven't articulated it correctly. Forget about the political nuance. Maybe that was just a silly thing to ascribe it to. When you've got the combination of the club have pivoted to its youth-centric approach, and you're buying up every 17 and 18-year-old and 19-year-old, some of whom have been shining lights in the season, but are not ready yet. And you have this, and I'll maintain this until I'm my dying day, that getting to the Champions League final was the worst thing that could have happened to Tottenham Hotspur. Like winning it obviously would have been different gravy. But getting to the final and then losing the way we did, when you had the timing of the new stadium, the timing of the debt, and then all of a sudden you reset expectations. For this before, it's like when you buy it, and Johnny, you know this, mate, when you buy a stock that is a £10 a share and it jumps to £20 a share because it has some abnormal event, it has some wild and weird thing that happens in that stock's day-to-day work that jumps that share price to £20. The smart money, if they recognise that it's an abnormal event, and in the case of Tottenham, Champions League final, you get out, right? Yeah. But everybody who's dumb goes, I've got to get on board this one, and they buy the top. And Tottenham Hotspur fans, their expectations were the representation of buying the stock at £20. They bought it up here, and when the inevitable gravity comes back in and it falls down again, suddenly nothing is good enough. Because they bought it at the top and their expectation has been reset. And do you know what? The beautiful thing about this situation right now is whoever inherits this squad, whether it's tomorrow, in the summer, or at some point in the future, if Ange Postecoglou does do the unthinkable and wins the trophy and gets his stay, the next guy is going to inherit not only a team of maturing 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds that are the beneficiary of this experience, but on top of that, the expectations of Tottenham fans are lower than ever. And that is a wonderful thing for the next guy to inherit, because I've never seen in my life a Tottenham Hotspur fan base that goes to Fulham away and not a single person realistically expects us to win. And that is a perfect storm of absolute wonderful, wonderful energy for the next guy to inherit. Maturing talent, expectations dropping, and a level playing field that all of a sudden is going to manifest into opportunity. So when people say who would take over Tottenham, if I was a manager, I agree that those people in the past shouldn't have taken over because you're buying into a poison chalice. Right now, expectations are coming down, talent is maturing, and I think it's a wonderful setup for the next manager to come into.
Listen, it's the perfect storm, and we've always said he's the guy before the guy. We've always said it. Unfortunately, Sean, it wasn't by design to take us to Summit Plummet and to take us to these, right?
Plummet.
Yeah. It wasn't by design to take us to the point we're now at, where the lowest ebb that I can remember as a Spurs fan. I don't remember this relentless defeatist attitude that we're all suffering. I saw these people wetting themselves when we beat AZ Alkmaar, who were missing 5 players. I expected us to beat AZ Alkmaar, but there was this sort of renewed energy that Ange was the great guy after all. I'm in the same belief that that he's the guy before the guy, and I'm happy with Iriola. I'm happy with Frank. I'm happy with Hoeneß. And, to a lesser extent, I'm probably happy with Silva, because I do believe, as you said, our expectations have been smashed to bits over the last.
It's a perfect time.
We've come from. Listen, look. When you say false expectations, we were having the best football years for many, many, many decades. Probably, Harry, Keith Birkinshaw, maybe. Keith Birkinshaw, obviously, because we won trophies. But it's been a long time coming. And they were fantastic times where there was a much more united fan base, where there wasn't so much toxicity. Everyone was singing.
Well, there wasn't social media. There wasn't that. Any of that stuff. You go back, even Harry Redknapp's time, mate. Social media wasn't what it is now, where everyone gets an opinion and everyone gets to be toxic.
Listen, I've been going a long time, right? And I can tell the fan base, even with or without social media, you can hear people on the terraces. They might have their individual favourites, or they might, people are still vocal. But in essence, going to those away games and going to see Pochettino, that unbeaten run in our final season at White Hart Lane, that finale game against Man United, where I shed a tear when, that was our final game. There's so many memories. I know sometimes memories are only memories of winning trophies, but that night in Ajax, although we never won a trophy, will live with me forever. That night, the afternoon at the last game at the stadium will live with me forever. I haven't had any real memories since. I've got bad memories. The memories of Conte against AC Milan when we're 1-0 down, and
exactly. Defending a 1-goal deficit.
Defending a 1-goal deficit. It was like he was paying us back, or something was amiss. But I think now the fact of the matter is the mystery as to why this manager, who's performed the worst out of any manager beyond Christian Gross, has been afforded so much latitude, because Levy bought into this philosophy. He bought the philosophy that Ange was preaching. And why wouldn't he, when it was so toxic before, that he was going to come in and, he was going to make people whole again. He was going to make the club better than it was before. And, I'm a nice guy, and I'm not bringing any toxicity to the club. And I'm going to make
the other element, though, mate, that people are like, why does he get the levity? Why does he get the leash on, like, enough rope when no one else did? People put it down to Daniel Levy, and I think this is, like, by the way, people that are Levy out, I think they are completely missing the trick on that whole notion that Daniel Levy doesn't sack Ange because if he does, it somehow gets him off the hook. Like, to me, that's such a wildly 180 take on the reality that not sacking Ange is more dangerous to Daniel Levy's brand. Yet the Levy out people that I listen to or see or watch, whatever, they believe it's a. I don't know everyone, but I'm just saying people that I see. There's a protectionist idea that Daniel Levy by sacking him gets him off the hook, right? And it to me, it's the opposite.
But it comes like a Kevlar vest. I mean, look, the thing is the baffling notion, like, how can a guy, I mean, use that analogy before about when he gave the analogy of the plumber. I've been at it for years, and
you wouldn't question a plumber.
You were a plumber, and you went out and you did 15 jobs, and all 15 jobs, there was leaking again. Everyone's got a right to come and bloody complain
exactly.
about it.
If you fail to fix a U-bend 15 times in 9 months, you're going to have a bad reputation. I hear you. I just think that one of the elements regarding why it is that he's got more time than other managers were afforded that is not spoken about is that Daniel Levy is not just sitting there thinking, or if I sack him, it's does that bring the heat on me, or does it take the heat off me?
He's invested, Sean.
There's 100% the idea that he's backed this guy to the tune of more money than he's paid for anyone else. Right. But on top of that, I think there is a massive reality that the guy before the guy, right? Like, let's go back to the guy before the guy. If Daniel Levy is of a smart mindset, which I think he is, he might not understand football like he thinks he understands business, but he's not an idiot. I think that this painful rebuild had to go in one direction. And if you sack Ange in January or February or December, then you have to bring someone else in on minimum 2-year contracts. And to me, all of that stuff that the next guy will inherit wasn't ready to inherit, because we didn't know what Barry Val was going to be like. We didn't know if Archie Gray was going to turn up. We don't know what this Yang Chuk Min Chuk.
Well, I don't. He's not ready. He's nowhere near ready.
I know he's not ready, right? But we're quietly going about assembling, in my opinion, and I know you share this opinion, and I know Dave does as well, the greatest young talent that any club in Europe has got. I think we've got a better squad of 17 to 21-year-olds than any other team in Manchester in the Premier League, and possibly top 3 across Europe. And it's not quite ready yet, but the oven hasn't finished. We've got all of the ingredients, but the dough is still baked, is still rising, right? And for me, if you sack him now, the next guy's going to come in and he's not quite ready to inherit it. But in the summer or after the Europa League or whatever happens, I think then you've got this, as I said at the start, this perfect storm of ingredients that is accompanied by, for the first time in fucking years, a lowering of expectations, which the fan base, and that's such an important factor. It's such an important part that people overlook.
If you get the right manager, and you see, I think we will get there despite, if we win the Europa League, we will get and win it, not because of Ange, despite Ange. But I do believe, history has told us when Villas-Boas got sacked and in came Di Matteo to win the FA Cup. He got sacked in March, and in that March, he went on to win the FA Cup and the Champions League. And Emery was sacked, and Arteta came in to win the FA Cup. And I'm just saying, I only looking as an interim manager. I think that the players. I did a post on the other day, a day before yesterday, or it might have been yesterday actually, of the players warming up for the Fulham game.
Jonny, to tell you what, because I wanted to ask you about your post recently, because I know it's created a lot of stir. But just before we get into that, if you don't mind, there's a few super chats I just want to call out, because Drew's been a member for 20 months. You still won't get rid of me. Ponies for life. Love you, man. First talk show, Ponies. Drew's, I love you, buddy. Hope you're doing well, my man. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully, once I get back to proper devices and stuff, we'll get you back on, obviously, in a couple of days' time, my man. I hope you're doing well. And, of course, this is the wonderful Blaine. Member for 18 months. The two of you, loyal to the end. Knew I kept this for a reason. Glad to see you back for the third remaster. Big up, Sean. Listen, Blaine, I love you to pieces, mate. I'm sorry for everyone who's been wondering where I've been. I saw someone put a comment in saying... So I logged into my email address for the first time in 3 weeks today, and I I dialed into the YouTube comments and I saw someone going, "Mate, you can't grow your channel if you keep disappearing like this. You know what? I followed you for a while, but I've had enough. It's not acceptable." Oh, okay, whatever. There's a reason. There's a reason. It's not through choice. I promise you. Super chats from Blaine. Thank you, Blaine, again. Saying, so this is your excuse for not going on a dirty weekend to the Dam. Welcome back, Sean. I didn't make it to the Dam, but I do have my ticket to Bilbao already paid for, and I do have my flights. I haven't got my hotel yet, but if Tottenham get there, I'll be there. Even if Tottenham don't, I'm going to take a few days away in Spain. See what those see what Viva Street Bilbao has to offer. Hey boys and girls. Hey boys and girls. Thank you so much for the super chat, my mate. Blaine, you're an absolute legend, man. Thank you very much, buddy. And then Tom Martin, member for 14 months. Welcome back, Sean. Once a member, always a member. I appreciate you, buddy. I really do. Thank you so much for the loyalty, guys. I really appreciate it. Like I say, none of you need to be to maintain your membership. I just don't know if I can fulfill the responsibility of delivering content as often as I'd love to. Sorry, Johnny, mate. Yeah, your content's caused quite a stir, mate. Let's hear about it.
Well, no, it's just before the game, I went down to the front row, and there was the 7 players warming up with what looked like a Peter Crouch sort of lookalike coach, and with him, who the players basically weren't taking any notice of. It didn't seem. It looked like the school playground scene where the PE teacher is telling them what to do, and the kids are just pushing each other around, laughing about, and joking about, and not listening to the teacher. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this don't look right. You got Sonny, you got Maddison, you got Saar. They're all pushing each other around. It's like, it's like a bit of a joke, really. And I said this to the guy, asked me, "What are you filming?" And I said to him, "It's a bit of a joke." And he goes, "Oh, mate, you're pathetic." What? He said, "Aren't they allowed to enjoy themselves?" And I said to him, "You know what? Had we won the majority of our games, I would have looked at that sort of attitude and at how they were behaving as confidence. They've got so much confidence.
Context is key, isn't it?
Correct, yeah. But the fact that we've lost 18 games at that moment, it seems so lackadaisical. And I said to him, if we come out and we are playing like that, if that's our leadership group, 2 of our main leaders in the leadership group behaving like this, then what message does that send for the rest of the group? Why aren't you firing them up? Why don't you look focused? So I wasn't really surprised when we had that first half came out against Fulham. We had the first 15 minutes in the second half, and then we reverted to type. Anyway, I posted that video, and it's quite interesting to see how many people sort of say, what do you want them to do? Be miserable. Well, I think there's a level of professionalism I expect to see from the leadership group and from the players, especially that. The fact that Ange, when we're in the shit, has decided to rotate 7 players when we've got an 18-day break from football was also baffling.
Did you hear when he said that? He was asked about that, and he said something like, "There's certain players that have to get minutes." And I don't know if that's like if I'm reading into it, but is that based on contractual requirements? You think?
No. Well, if that was the case, why didn't he give minutes to Reguilon when we didn't have a left back?
Well, maybe it's not in his particular contract.
Or Jed Spence, right? Let's be honest. Whatever you think of Serge Reguilon, right? When you don't have a left back, the guy's played for Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Man United, right? Okay, I'm sure he's good enough for Ange Postecoglou to come on and play 15, 20 minutes to give a break. And the same with Jed Spence. I was taking a lot of flack for weeks about my standing by Jed Spence and why wasn't he getting a game, and he deserves a game. And all I got was he's a bad egg. He's a bad egg. And I'm sure...
Bag egg.
A bag of eggs. I'm sure Ange knows better than you. Well, the fact of the matter is, I have got a little bit privy to that. But look, hindsight, as he says, Ange talks about people like you and me as, oh yeah, the hindsight merchants who talk about everything after the defeat, after the result. No, Ange, you know, certain people, and not just us, many of the YouTube channels and people are on Twitter and other social media, they're not all hindsight. They can see, they have the foresight to see that basically the way you're going about it, that Ange Ball isn't a thing anymore. What we're seeing is a more pragmatic setup.
Unfortunately, Johnny, what it looks like to me is you had a guy that came in, and I'm not going to hark on US politics anymore after this particular comment, right? But back in the day, just after 9/11, there was a guy who was part of the administration under the Bush administration, and years later he turned around and basically exposed this plan that he was aware of, that they were going to go into Afghanistan and Iraq, and then after that Syria and like places in North Africa, and eventually end up with Iran. Right, that was a long-term plan. Anyway, apart from that, but he summarized it by saying, why are we going? So he said, why are we going into Iraq and Afghanistan? Like, what do they have to do with 9/11? And he turned around and said, I don't know, but I guess if the only tool that you have is a hammer, i.e. the military, then every problem has to be a nail. And I feel like with Ange, when he first came in, the only tool that he had is a hammer, i.e. front foot, aggressive football, and therefore every problem, i.e. every formation, every strategy, every tactic has to look like a nail. And unfortunately for him, it turned out that when you're trying to play Premier League football, that not everything's a nail. And now he's trying to use that hammer, and now he's dipping into an unused toolbox. He doesn't understand how to use a screwdriver. He doesn't understand how to use any of the other things that I'm exposing my lack of knowledge of toolboxes here. But if all you have is,
you're an analogy central today.
You can see I'm rusty. You can see how rusty I am, right? But he's a hammer guy, right? And the formation requires that you to hit a nail. But unfortunately, in the Premier League, nails are not just nails. They sometimes look like screws. Sometimes they look like bolts. Sometimes they look like other things. And you need a bunch of different tools. And right now, he's dipping into that tool bag and pulling things out. And he's manipulating and twisting the system, but he doesn't know how to do it. This is why I said a long time ago, it's not a case of can't change because you won't change, can't change. It's he doesn't know how to change because he's only ever played one system. And when he's asked to do something different, under the peer pressure of the fan fallout, which he says he doesn't care about, he clearly does care about it because it's affecting him and it's forcing him to do something different, which he has no experience with, nor does the players. The players that are 18 years old do not have the benefit of being able to lean into their previous managers. They don't have the benefit of leaning into their previous years to go, oh, it's time to play a back three, is it? Okay, superb. I'm ready for it. And then, as I've said 1,000 times, to disregard a back three model because you tried it for 45 minutes, Johnny, against Everton away.
With half your team missing.
The only team in the Premier League that you wouldn't go away from home where a back three makes sense and employ it, and it gets exposed because the players are going, what? Why are we doing this? We haven't practiced this. We haven't trained for it. And then go, I told you. Now, can you let me get on with my job, please? And then to do exactly the same against Liverpool, do exactly the same against Aston Villa in the Cups. He's trying to tweak things when he's at the same time saying, we haven't got, the injuries are not my fault. You know why? I've got evidence why injuries are not down to my regime, because I haven't had any time to train in the last 2 months because of our ferocious schedule.
Because we've been successful.
Because we're playing twice a week. We don't have any time to train. Okay, cool. So the injuries aren't your fault. But by that same logic, why on God's green earth are you playing systems that you haven't had time to train for? Because you weren't doing it 6 months ago because it was who we are, mate. Now you move forward and you're going, well, it's not injuries aren't my fault. Okay, but the tactics are then. And he doesn't want to acknowledge it. And when you do this double speak thing, Johnny, where you're saying one thing, but you're actually saying another, you end up looking silly because it doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together and get to 4 when you analyse what he's saying.
You know what, for me,
madness.
You know what, for me, I said this right at the beginning, and there's one concept I really didn't understand. This refusal, where he said really early doors that he had no interest in what the opposition were doing. It's what we are doing that counts. And I find that really strange. I mean, I'll use an analogy, as we're on Analogy Central tonight. If you were a boxer, and you were a boxer, and I said to you, okay, we're fighting Manuel Lopez tomorrow, next week. I'll send you the videos of him. And you turn around to me and go, I don't need to watch the videos of him. I'll smash his head in. And you go, well, and I say to you, well, hang on a minute. You've not fought a southpaw before. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll smash his head in. I don't need to watch the videos. Or, I'll say to you, well, what you need to watch the videos of this guy, a different guy, and he punches at range. He's got long reach. Oh, no. I don't need to watch it. It's foolhardy. It's foolhardy, because surely as a manager, what you try to do is to expose the weaknesses and negate the strength of your opposition, while still allowing yourself to be your best version of yourself. But he doesn't seem to. I mean, nothing makes sense. This thing where he doesn't care, he doesn't bring his own staff with him. So he's bought 2 guys from Hibernian this season who were sacked because they failed at Hibs. And he doesn't care because, top managers have their same staff. Jose's had his staff with him. Poch's had his staff with him. Nuno's had his same staff with him, apart from when he was at Spurs. This guy doesn't seem to care about that. And, Scott, who's been our head of medical for 20 years, under the most vocal coaches, Redknapp, Mourinho, Conte, Poch, without a problem. I mean, I'm saying he didn't have questions or they didn't have conversations, but he survived them all. But when he confronted Ange to say, I don't believe your system is sustainable, the conversation didn't go too well. And Scott has left after 20 years in the summer. And where are we now? Our worst injury crisis as a club. Is there any coincidence with that?
Correct.
No. And what about our set pieces? When Ange says, when we were conceding again and again and again, and he said, well, we don't do set pieces. You're inviting the fire to be set beneath you. Conte brought in one of the best set piece coaches, attacking coaches in football, and he didn't want him either, and he left.
What was his name?
His name's gone.
Iana? No, Yanni. No.
Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there seems to be
someone in the chat. Let us know.
Look, I know that he not only does he not interact with them during the game.
Giovanni Villa.
Not Viali.
Gianni Villa. Was it Villa? Vio.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Oh, there you go, Gianni Vio. Yeah, I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, Gianni Vio. I just think that.
But he was an attacking set piece guy, right? He wasn't.
No, that's what I said. Yeah, I don't think defensive, but look how bad our attacking set pieces are. Have you watched them recently? Does anyone remember the one the other day, the comical one between Son and Madison, which was like a carry-on film?
Oh, you told me about this. Yeah, I haven't seen it. But, yeah.
It was an embarrassment, right?
Is that just down to?
No, it's down to shit. I'm sorry, it's absolutely down. Thomas Frank, basically practices all the time. And Dan Burn, Eddie Howe has just announced, we said the other day, that Dan Burn has been practicing that move, that headed goal that he scored against Liverpool, that brilliant header. He's been practicing that move every day for the last 2 weeks. By the
way, right? So Dan Burn, shout out to him. Talking about that, I just want to quickly bring up LB3, who's saying, where is it? Here you go. I've just joined the stream, mate. Has Sean made any excuses about Newcastle Cup win yet, or mentioned that how outdated stat about 5 teams and 92% of trophies, or some BS? First of all, unless there's a doppelganger of you, LB3, you were in the chat about half an hour earlier because you said it's good to see you, Sean. And he's got the same emoji, same icon. So unless it's someone else, then you've got a doppelganger. But otherwise, that's a lie. You haven't just joined the stream. Second of all, the 92% have been won by 5 teams because of Newcastle's win has changed to 91.25%. Right? It's still the same 5 teams win 92%. There's only 7 other teams, or 8 now, that have won the other 8%, and that hasn't really manifested in change. But congratulations to Newcastle; they were sensational. It doesn't change my point. But on the point of Dan Burn, he's a player that most of us have always respected, recognised the value of having someone that's unbelievably tall, unbelievably strong in the air, and that's very good at doing their job. We can play left side, centre back, left back. You know who's another player, Johnny, who you and I were talking about a long time ago when he was playing at Fiorentina, I think it was, and he now plies his trade at Nottingham Forest alongside Murillo, and they've got 2 world-class centre backs, and that is Milenkovic, right? Yeah. And we were both saying how much he should come. I know other people in the YouTube space are also waxing lyrical about him, so I'm not going to sit here and sort of make it a one-horse.
He wasn't sexy, was he? That's the problem.
There's another player, mate. There's another player. Just to finish the point. There's another player that right now has not, I don't believe, left where he is, and that is the next Milenkovic, and that is David Hanko. And I guarantee you that in 3 years' time, 2 years' time, David Hanko will be a player that everyone is talking about, that Tottenham should have signed, or that should have been at the Premier League, should have gone to a big one. He will go to somewhere like Nottingham Forest, where Nottingham Forest inevitably lose Murillo, inevitably lose Milenkovic, and make 100 million quid on those players. And they'll go and bring in someone like David Hanko. And Tottenham should go and get him. Should have got him in January. Should get him right now. He is another absolute monster.
I mean, I wanted him to come with Slot in the time. The other one who we should have got, the Monster 6, is Edison at Atalanta. Unfortunately,
How long have we been talking about a Monster 6 for, Johnny? And it's amazing. Because everyone, like most people, were like, Sean, shut up about your Monster 6. Well, now everybody is saying Tottenham need a 6. Like, where have you been? We've needed him for 2 years.
Edison, 2 years. 2 years going on about Edison, 2 years. And now he's out of our reach. He's going to end up at Man United or Liverpool, Edison. Mark my words. Atalanta, Edison, Monster 6. Absolutely.
He's a brilliant player. But he can play in the 8 as well. He's versatile. Yeah. He's even played in the 10, believe it or not, for Atalanta. He's a quality player. I wanted to ask you about Rooney Bargi, mate. The Swedish Revolution.
I'll tell you about him. So
links are out today. Apparently, that Tottenham are front and centre for him in the summer. He's a young 19-year-old Swedish player.
Yeah,
obviously known for his Manchester United's worldie that he scored back in the Champions League earlier this season. But
it's a Copenhagen kid. Listen, he had a few issues. Was dropped because of his attitude. Came back and he got a serious injury. He won't be back before the start of the season, and I find it very difficult to see how Copenhagen are going to get top money for him when he's been in the state that he's in. Spurs were interested in him prior. He's with CAA, which would mean that there's a link there. There's another.
Is he with base? Is he?
Yeah. Well, it's linked. He's linked there, and the Copenhagen have got another young player, Brazilian, called Robert, who looked very good when he came on for Copenhagen for about 20 minutes for Chelsea the other night. Listen, Rooney Badaj, however you want to call it, is a good young talent, but coming back from such a serious injury, luckily he's young enough, but we need to see how he is. And I think when you're risking that money, I think they would need to see some sign of him playing some football, because he would have been out for over a year, more or less. He got injured, I think it was January last year, around that time. And so I think it's wide of the mark at the moment, unless they can get him on a really good deal and he passes with flying colours for his injury. But yes, he was a named talent. What happened?
What do you think?
Go on.
Oh, God. I was going to ask you because obviously I've not been.
What happened to Noosa?
He went to RB Leipzig.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and he's smashed it. He's done an absolute worldie. Another player that you and I were both mad about.
Out Brentford, didn't he? He was going to Brentford but failed the medical. And then Leipzig stepped. I think it was Leipzig. Was it Leipzig or Salzburg? Let me know in the chat if I got that one wrong. But I think he's gone to Leipzig, and he's smashed it out of the park. Mate, I want to ask you about this, right? So obviously, I've not been able to follow. I haven't been able to watch Tottenham's games. This is the state of my life at the moment. For the last few weeks, I've seen the highlight reels on YouTube and that. But look, putting aside all of my missed form, I've obviously read the reports, read the news. Matisse Tell, 60 million quid, not done a lot. Apparently, was a little bit better against Fulham. You got the guy from FC Bayern on Twitter, I forget his name, who works for Sky, who basically said he has to play as a striker when he's at loan at Tottenham. That's his best position. I think that's been proven to be foolhardy. He's obviously, to most of our eye, he is it was RB Leipzig. It was a difficult leap for him to play that role with the absence of Solanke and Richarlison. I do want to push this notion, right? Let's. Like I say, it doesn't matter to me whether it's Silva, whether it's Pochettino that we could find in the summer, because I think the Pochettino, for what it's worth, would drop America like that if there was an offer on the table, even though it's a hard gig to give up given their World Cup and all that stuff. I still think that could happen. The fact that he's twerking for Tottenham, coming into a World Cup year, I actually find it quite disrespectful from Pochettino towards the American national team, because he knows that Pochettino's on a knife edge with his future. Postecoglou is. With regards the transfer window coming up in the summer, it's not that far away now, right? Give or take 13 games left for the rest of the season in an ideal world. What is the most pressing position, right? Forget about outgoings just for a second. Imagine there's 5 spots in the squad, and no one was leaving, but you just had to work on what do you need for next season under any particular managerial style. A manager that's more complicated, that has the ability to do a little bit of everything. A manager that's still on the same track. That pendulum pulls back 10%, but you still have someone that wants to play aggressive football. Do Tottenham need a winger? If so, which side? Is it a striker? Is it a 6? Is it a centre back? Is it a left back? Where do you see the weaknesses in this team over the last couple of months? Has it highlighted anything for you that wasn't already apparent before then? I do believe that a flexible manager with tactical nous, this team would not be playing the way they are. We would not be in the position we are, even regarding with injuries. I think the one thing that's missing in this, look, I've grown up with creative geniuses, right? The Hoddles, the Waddles, the Gascoignes, the creatives, yeah? I don't feel that Maddison is anywhere near that level, personally. And so for me, we have had so many permutations in our midfield that I've lost count how many times he's changed that midfield over the course of 2 years. He still does not know his best midfield. So for me, it's a monster 6 and it's a creative midfielder. We saw when you took James Maddison out of that game against Fulham, and there was no Bergvall, there was no Kulu, and there was no Maddison. There's no creativity. There's nothing happening. We're a blank, okay? All we can do is try and push the ball out wide to Brennan Johnson, who can't beat anybody. We're predictable. It's boring. So
as Brennan Johnson, sorry to interject, mate, just because you mentioned his name, has he been exposed when you see what a fully fit and energetic, not that I've seen it, but I've heard about it, an energetic Wilson Odebear can do off the right?
Okay.
Has Brennan Johnson's inadequacies in the rest of his game? Don't get me wrong, like he's very good at finishing his dinner, but in the rest of his game, he's absolutely poor. We always laugh about how bad he is. I've got the video of the horse, the Shetland pony. Has Johnson been exposed as being just inadequate? And by the way, the extension of this, not that I'm against a manager calling out players here and there when necessary. Ange called out Timo. He called out Basuma, rightly so. He's never called out Brennan Johnson.
Wonder why, Sean? It's his first purchase. He made Levy spend £12 million more than the fee agreed with Brentford to buy him. Look, I'll tell you something, right? Wilson Odebear has already got more take-ons than Timo Werner, and he's only played a handful of games, and he's only 10 take-ons behind Brennan
for this season.
Yeah, and he's hardly played, right?
Yeah.
The point is, when you take on players, or when you cut inside and you take on players, you're drawing people into you. You might draw one or two players into you. Though drawing those players in creates space for others to exploit, whether it's the centre forward or it's the the midfielders moving into that space. He is so predictable, Brendan Johnson. Look, I got a lot of flack at the start when I called him Brenda Johnson, right?
Yeah.
I called him Brenda. My kids gave me a hard time.
I'm still here.
All right. My kids gave me a hard time because, I was calling him Brenda Johnson and he kept scoring. And they said, oh, you're too harsh on him. Look, I've got nothing against the kids as a person, but, £47 million on a player that we've used the money from Harry Kane. Come on. If you'd have given me that money, I'm buying Brian Mbeumo, right? I did a list of players that I would take at that time. The only thing Brian Mbeumo at the time was, his finishing wasn't as crisp as it is now. But Brendan Johnson would never have been on that list. Do Nottingham Forest look poorer for selling Brendan Johnson? No. They used that 47 million and they've acquired Anderson, Murillo, Milenkovic.
Listen. A lot of people think I always defend Daniel Levy against the indefensible and stuff. I don't. If you watch this channel, I'll call him out. On other channels, on third-party channels, I'm always usually rolled out to play the other side of a debate. But if you watch this channel, I'll always call it as I see it. And for me, there's very few owners who have demonstrated in a couple of years a proficiency at backing your manager for what you need and hiring and firing people in accordance with whatever your blueprint is. And I forget the guy's name, the Nottingham Forest owner, whatever, something Adiakos, whatever, the Greek shipping magnate. He has done unbelievable things. When you think about what Nottingham Forest, when they came up to the Premier League, Johnny, they only had 8 actual first team players. And when they first came up to the Premier League, they had to buy out, they bought 17, 20 players, whatever it was. They got a lot of them wrong. Some of them have been shipped on, but they had to because all the players that they came up with were either inadequate or they were on loans. And then so they had to sort of move a lot of them on, or they went back to their original club.
They sacked the recruitment team, didn't they?
They sacked the recruitment team, right? Yeah. And then they went about their business. And the first season, everyone was like, why have you bought so many players? It's madness. But they stayed up, and then they've gone again. And for what it's worth, first of all, shout out to Nuno. Not that I think he would ever be a good fit for Tottenham because his style of football is not. It's the antithesis of what Tottenham fans want. But also, what he's good at is, in my opinion, is letting players play. He identifies players that are perfect for his system, and then lets them or asks them to play to their strengths. which is not something that a manager does like Ange, who comes in with his system. And I criticised Conte for this same thing where Conte wanted everyone to adapt to his philosophy because he didn't want to have to go to the hard work of understanding the skills of the players that he had and then doing it. And then asking them to play their best version of themselves. He wants everyone to adapt to him. Same as the guy at Manchester United, who came in from Sporting, who wanted, he bit that poison pill, which is Manchester United, the hot seat there, and has walked into an absolute shit show of cost cutting from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But at Nottingham Forest, that owner hired the perfect guy who then was given the green light to buy the players that he saw fit, which was perfect for his system. And to someone's point in the comments, Milenkovic wouldn't be a good fit for many systems, but for the Nottingham Forest system, he's a perfect fit. Murillo would be adaptable.
What about Murillo?
Murillo's adaptable, right? He's
a beautiful player. What a beautiful player. Listen, I've got to tell you, this ain't no blip for Nottingham Forest. I don't believe that this is a blip. This isn't like one season.
Next season they'll finish 13th again. You know why?
No, I don't believe so. I'm sorry.
The reason I
can I tell you why?
I'll have a cheeky charity bet with you, whatever you want to put on it, right? Whatever you want, a fiver, 10, whatever. The reason why is because they haven't got the squad depth to play 2 games a week.
I finished. Right. So basically, they bought in Edu, right? They prized him away from Arsenal, and he's done a good job recruitment-wise at Arsenal over the years.
He hasn't. No, he hasn't.
I believe he has. He sold. Listen, look how many players they've sold. You might think they've done bad, but all the players he's bought in, look how much Arsenal have raised from the sale of their players, something that we have failed to do for years upon years. We've signed the odd one. We've sold the odd one. My point is Edu's been bought in from Marinakis, by Marinakis with the remit to not only maintain where they are now, but to improve where they are now. And he's been paid a shed load of money to do that while he's jumped ship. So
he will do Nottingham Forest will do exactly the same thing as what Newcastle did, what Tottenham did, and what so many other teams do.
You're saying, can I just say, so the only thing that's going to be more difficult for them is if they get into the Champions League, which is looking likely.
Well, it doesn't matter. Champions League or Europa League. Champions League, it doesn't matter. 2 games a week.
Balancing Europe and the thing will be much more difficult.
And that's why they'll finish 12th again, 100%.
I don't know about finishing 12th, Sean. I really don't.
But Newcastle couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Tottenham haven't been able to do it. Brighton haven't been able to do it.
Tottenham was
West Ham couldn't do it.
Games. The least amount of games for 16 years, and still
we finished 5th last season.
Yeah, we managed to tail off. We lost 7 games.
I hear you, but we finished 5th last season without the compromise of 2 games a week. Newcastle United, when Eddie Howe first got in there, they finished 4th. They got into the Champions League, and then they collapsed because under the pressure of playing 2 games a week, and they had a horrible group. They had a horrible group in the Champions League, but they failed. They failed miserably, and they came out next season. They failed in the Champions League, and they failed in the league. And the next season, guess what? 0 European fixtures. They got back into the Champions League, got back into Europe again, I think it was. And look, it's just a consequence of being a team that's in trajectory, that's in transition. And I think that Nottingham Forest will have exactly the same struggles next season. West Ham went through it, Brighton went through it, Tottenham have gone through it, Newcastle went through it.
Newcastle, I think, with respect, I think Nottingham Forest. Everyone's expecting Forest to fall apart and to drop off. I'm not going to be in the same league as West Ham because West Ham.
Brighton. Everyone talks about how brilliant Brighton are. They've struggled massively this season because of the compromise of playing European football. It's difficult for smaller teams to be able to play.
They keep winning. I don't know what Sean.
Who?
Since they lost that 7-0, that drubbing by Nottingham Forest, Brighton have been on a roll.
But Brighton are out of Europe now.
No, I'm saying to you, you're saying that they've fallen by the wayside.
No, because they have. Well, first of all, they are not. They're not qualifying for Europe. In my opinion,
I'm going to hear a bad word about Brighton because basically, I think
you haven't. Well, if you don't want to hear a bad word about Brighton, then maybe you're on the wrong channel, Johnny.
No. But what I'm saying is, like, when you look at a success story, what I'm saying is, when you look at House, a small club that one guy has come along and put £100 million into building his stadium, asking for nothing, has got that money back and has established them, as a team. And that model originally was, find the players, sell the players. And I keep getting told by people it's not.
Same with Bournemouth, by the way. Bournemouth will be exactly the same. You watch Bournemouth next season. Bournemouth next season won't do it.
It's not sustainable for years upon years right now about Brighton. They've sold.
It isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable, mate.
Sean, they've been saying it now for a number of years. And my point is, I don't see a team that's going backwards. Okay.
They're not a team that's on the march, mate. It's mate. Dude, this is a story as old as time itself. Okay.
Yeah, but for a small club, hang on, Sean. They are punching way above their weight.
Not anymore. They're not. Not anymore. They're not. The story of Brighton being this small team. Sorry, they've gone through that transition. They've got a wonderful owner, but for me, when you have a team that relies on unbelievable excellence in their transfer strategy, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I've never been proven wrong. They're not there. Where are they this year? Where are they?
Well, what do you expect? Hang on a second. It's when you say only progression. You need to go at some point. I've said this 1,000 times. At some point, isn't there a ceiling for a club? Isn't there a stage where, when you talk about expectations of Tottenham?
Yes.
Should you not say that Tottenham are a much bigger club than Brighton? Therefore, our expectations should be greater than Brighton.
Of course.
Brighton, the achievements that Brighton are making currently and over the period, not only sustaining their position, it's about overachieving.
Yes, it is, mate. It is, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point. I've said this for the last 2 years. Brighton and Brentford were the two shining lights of this data-driven model, and I've said from the get-go. At some point, if you want to go from 15th, 16th, 17th,
at some point, in the next few years, Sean?
No, hold on. No. Right, it's happening right now, mate. It's happening right now. Okay. At some point, if you want to go from 15th to 10th to 6th, to qualify for Europe, to play 2 games a week, to kick on in the league, to get to 4th, if you want to do this transition and your only recipe for success is data-driven transfer strategies,
right,
which, by the way, let me finish. Who are?
Brighton.
2 points off. They're not, mate. If they get there, guess what's going to happen? They have to play 2 games a week, and they won't do it. It's the same thing, mate. And by the way,
but you can't knock the achievement, Sean. I'm
not knocking it. I'm not knocking anything. I'm saying if you want to do what Tottenham did, the reason why Tottenham Hotspur are the perennial laughing stock and the perennial underachievers, the one team in the Big Six that haven't ever knocked on the door enough to get through the door, is because the gap between everybody else and the Big Five is different. It's manifested in things like your brand, your ability to attract the best players. When Tottenham tried to sign Luis Diaz, and Luis Diaz was about to come to Tottenham, and then Liverpool picked up the phone and went, by the way, Liverpool were interested too. He went, sorry, Tottenham, I'm going there. You know why he went there? It wasn't because of money. It was because of brand. It was because of success. It was because of track record. Those Big Five that LV3 was talking about, saying, oh, Sean's going to make up the excuse now why Newcastle covered it. Newcastle are a Johnny come lately that are in there, and congratulations to them. By the way, it's fantastic. It was fantastic to see them. A massive celebrant of them. Massive. But when it comes to teams like Brighton and Bournemouth, they can't rely on the revenue streams of other aspects of their business. And so they make up the difference in their incredible data transfer strategy. There's 2 problems with that. One is if you want to continue your march up the ladder, because it's very easy to go from 17th to 10th and to 6th. It's very difficult to knock on the door and get through it. Hang on. It's very, very difficult to knock on the door and get through it. But in order to do it, you can't keep selling your best players. You have to hold on to your best players. And teams like Bournemouth, who don't have the revenue streams of a stadium that's bigger than 13,000, they can't sell their best players. If they stop selling their best players, then they have to find another way to.
I've talked about
Brighton's another example of it, mate.
You've added Bournemouth, who have only got 11,000 seat stadium.
Brighton is another example of it. Let me finish. Brighton's another example of it because Brighton have sustained their ability to attract the best by three things. One is a genuine, clear-cut pathway to break through and to always have your pathway through to the first team. That disappears when you stop selling your best assets for £100 million. Number two is when you keep hold of your best players and you don't sell them for £100 million, then you don't have the revenue streams to be able to go and buy the next players that you need. Because Brighton at 30,000 seats a stadium does not have the revenue streams of Liverpool, Tottenham, Newcastle, everyone else. And even Newcastle don't have it, right? But on top of that, when you can't do that, and if you are relying on a data-based model that was ahead of its time, and everybody else, just like in every other walk of life, Johnny, when something is a success, all of the big boys come in and emulate it. That's what they do. That's what happens in fashion. It's what happens in finance. It's what happens. And so Brighton will no longer. Last thing I'll say, mate. Last thing I'll say. Finish the point. Brighton will no longer be able to rely on going and finding Iceland's next top model, right? Or fucking Slovenia's next top 15-year-old, because everyone is in the future. Everybody is going to play that database game.
But there hasn't been any secrets in football for a number of years, Sean. Right? My best mate in football. No, there isn't, Sean. Right?
Then why can Brighton do it but Tottenham haven't?
Sean, there aren't secrets as like all the players are on data, right?
Yeah, now they are. Now they are.
Right. All the teams, all the players, right? Everyone knows everyone. There's teams of players in agencies, in clubs, and all the rest of it. Listen, Bournemouth had massive offers for Matoma, right, in the summer. They turned them all down because they felt they were in a position now that they don't have. They got money in the bank from all the other sales that they could afford to not sell him. And they spent money on players. I'm just giving Brighton as an example. I'm not giving all of the teams. I've not mentioned Brentford. I've not mentioned any other team.
The same story at Brentford, man.
Brighton. And I think what I'm saying to you is I think they are a commendable model that has stood the test of time, okay, that has been built up from where they were with no ground, the Goldstone ground, and have built a stadium. And, you know, they're one of the few success stories in football that I take my hat off to him with what Tony Bloom has only done with that club. And long may it continue because I like...
It won't continue. It won't continue.
I'm saying I would rather see the success story of something like that where a guy has come in with his own money, a local guy, and he's supported the club and he's delivered what he's delivering now, as opposed to a state-backed club. That's what I'm saying. And so
I agree with you on all that stuff. I'm a celebrant of their success. What I'm saying is, if you take a team from 17th to 14th to 10th to 8th, at some point, if you want to break into the big boys, you can't sell your best players to make ends meet. You can't do it. You have to keep holding your best players.
Yeah, but I think Brighton are punching way above their position. They're a stadium in the middle of nowhere. It's a bloody pain to get to, right?
It is, yeah.
Listen. Anyway, we've gone off track a bit, but as we normally do.
No, my point on this is that the likes of Brentford, Brighton, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest, to get back to the original point, all of those teams, when they have to play, just like Newcastle struggled and just like Tottenham did. When you have to throw in 2 games a week, then they have to rely on their squad depth.
Well, we know that.
And they haven't got it. They haven't got it, nor do they have the ability to sustain their presence in the top echelons of football if they are going to continue to sell their best players because
you're not going to see any protests against Tony Bloom, right?
That's not the point I'm making.
No, I'm trying to say he is the ideal owner model.
No, he's not.
He is, mate.
No, he's not. He's amazing. He's
in a club that was bankrupt with no stadium.
So did Daniel Levy. So did Daniel Levy.
No, come on, Sean. Right?
My point is, he's amazing at one part of the game. He's incredible at one part of the game. But that one part of the game is not something that you can protect. Okay, it's not something that's got any IP to it because everybody now knows that data is the way to find and identify these players.
The fans love Tony Bloom.
Yes, I know they do.
Bloom gets in the stands and goes to away games, mate, and sits and stands with the fans. If Daniel Levy did that, he'd be strung up.
Daniel Levy goes to every away game.
I know, but you know what I'm talking about.
No, I know. But that's again, expectations of the fans is different to the sustainability.
I'll give you an example. When I went to Brighton and I was in the director's box with him and his brother, and when we went out to the game to sit outside, I said, "Where's Tony? Do you know where he was sat?" He weren't even sat. He had no interest in sitting in the director's box, right? I was sat with his brother. He was sat in the stands with the regular fans because that's the type of person he is. Down to earth, only interested in the club. He's like a fan. And it's a rare thing. It's a rare thing. Yes, it's a business, but ultimately he's one of those rare breeds, is a fan. And I don't know how genuine a fan Daniel is of the club. You know, he said, oh, his first game was this and his first game was that. But look, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm just saying I think that, you know, it's a commendable model, and what he's achieved is really commendable, and it's a rarity in this day and age. And
I celebrate those things,
replicated. I think it's going to be hard to be replicated.
What? Because it's a data-based model,
no
mate.
History, mate. They've got no history of being, you know, at this level. You're missing. I think we're arguing different things, mate. What I'm saying is, I commend him. You keep saying it's not sustainable and they'll drop out and they'll not be anything.
No, I'm saying that if your mandate for success and why he's such an amazing owner is based primarily on what he has achieved, which is a financially prudent model based on transfer strategy, then there's three reasons why that won't last. One is you can't keep climbing up the ladder and compete with the best teams if you are always going to sell your best players.
I've just told you he stopped selling all his best players. I just said that to you.
He hasn't stopped selling his best players though. He hasn't. The last summer window, he hasn't. The last summer window, he sold two of his best players, right?
He had offers for Mitoma and refused them and spent money.
Spent what money? The money that he made from the previous summer when he sold Caicedo and Lavia, and
Lavia was from Southampton.
So you're right, yeah. Sorry, not Lavia. Caicedo and I forget who the other player was.
Anyway, 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the money that he made from it, right? That he's selling that money. He's front running that money. My point is, mate, is that if you want to get to the top, if you want to, it's different. It's the same with managers, mate. It's the same with managers who do a really good job at taking, like Iriola, for example, or like Silver at Fulham, right? Very good jobs at teams taking them from the nowheres to the maybe rounds, but none of them have done anything at the top level. And when you get to the very top, you can't sell your best players. You have to have a different revenue streams to be able to do that. And if you don't sell your best players, then you also cut off the other selling point, which is come to Brighton because you've always got a pathway through to the first team, no matter who's in front of you now, because that player is going to leave in 12 months and you'll get your chance. If those players stop leaving, you cut off the pathway through to the first team. And that is another selling point that will disappear. And on top of that, you have to fight 2 games a week, which very few teams have made the transition into successfully doing. Newcastle couldn't do it. Tottenham couldn't do it. Nottingham Forest won't do it. They won't. Like I said to you, I'll have a sportsman's bet with you, mate, to go towards charity that Nottingham Forest next year whether they're in the Europa League or in the Champions League, will struggle. They will not be as dominant in the Premier League as they are now.
So I'll give you the Brighton signings this season, okay? George Rutter, 46 million euros, right? Minte, 35 million euros. Mats Wiefler, 32 million euros. Gruder, 31 million euros. Ferdi Kudigu, I can't know how you spell that, the Turkish player, 30 million euros. Matt O'Reilly, Celtic, 29 million euros. Stefan Simas, right, from Nuremberg, 25 million. Ibrahim Osman, 19 million. Another player for 7 million. And the players he sold were Denison Dove, 26 million. And Billy Gilmore, 14 million. And Pascal Gross, 7 million. That's all he sold last summer.
Yeah. Right.
So
where Brighton? So Brighton are where in the league right now?
They are 2 points off fourth.
Where are they right now? Where are they in the league right now?
Well, I just told you, seventh, or is it? Seventh, yeah.
Seventh, yeah.
Joint with Newcastle, 1 point behind and 2 points behind Chelsea.
Right. Do you think that Brighton will be able to sustain their growth?
I don't know. Listen, I don't know. I'm just saying to you, this thing. I'm just saying to you that this model that they only sell players, they only sell players and they don't buy anybody. They've sold plenty, and yet they spent 180 million. They spent on players. In the summer,
I'm not saying they don't buy anybody. I'm saying that they replace the players that they sell, but they buy the players that they sell they sell them at the top peak value, and then they go and replace them with the next best young crops out there. But I'm saying that the data model is something that is emulated, mate. It's not something like Daniel Levy right now has a unique selling point.
Someone like Brennan Johnson spending £47 million on Brennan Johnson without data.
Hang on. Oh, I'm not. Listen. If you want to have a debate about Daniel Levy and Tottenham's misspending of their money, you're not going to find a debate with me because I think we're terrible at it. I think it's the one area of our game that is absolutely appalling.
Shocking.
It's shocking, 100%. But what I'm saying is that Daniel Levy can still raise the revenue through the club through other means. Brighton don't have that same model. Bournemouth certainly don't with a 13,000-seater stadium.
Let's stick to Brighton.
I'm talking about all these teams that are popping up. Fulham the same, right?
I haven't put them in that same breath. I'm just talking about Brighton's model because I don't think Brighton and Bournemouth are on the same.
Brighton's model is based on the same principle as Brentford's model,
yes,
right? And it's a data-based model. But what my point is that when it's just like every other team in the Premier League right now is looking at their stadium and going, how can we emulate what Tottenham have done? Because Tottenham makes so much money. Come rain or shine, it doesn't matter. They can get, even at Tottenham, where there's a limitation because of Northumberland Park Council on how many non-match day events you can have, the revenue keeps piling in, right? Regardless.
We're up to 30 now, aren't we?
Right. Regardless of what's happening at Tottenham on the field, off the field, the stadium is unique. That won't last forever because everyone else in life is going, what's that? There's a genuine revenue stream. Let's go and emulate that. Newcastle are going to do it with their new stadium. Everton, exactly, right? And the same thing happens if you have a unique selling point with regard to your amazing ability under Star Lizard, and with Brentford, it's under something called Bet Pro or something, or Bet for You Pro, whatever it is. Similar models. They have their betting systems that identify the inability to find real value in betting markets, and then they go to their high-end network clients and say, look, this is what our data has suggested, that actually there's unequal value in the betting market here, so put your money there. They've taken that same data and they've gone and found brilliant players, that same model, and used it to identify talent. But you know what? Every other club, I hope, including Tottenham Hotspur, have now zoned in and gone, look at what Brentford and Brighton are having ridiculous success at doing. And that will inevitably even itself out. When there is an unequal playing field, when certain companies, businesses, whatever, when they identify something that is an outlier, that stuff is emulated because it's not protectable. And I'm just saying that Brighton and Brentford and all those teams that do that, that won't last, especially when if you want to carry on the climb towards the top of the knock on that door, you can't also sell your best players. So Brighton are going to struggle, in my opinion. They won't be able to sustain it.
years. People have been saying that for the last 5 years. You know, they have, and they keep saying it.
For the last couple of years.
Huh?
For the last couple of years.
Well, look, go back and how far they've been the model of selling their players. I mean, if we had a better idea of identifying talent and identifying players and the whole setup, because Brighton is not just about identifying the player, it's identifying, they have a multi-club ownership model as well, don't forget, which they're farming these players out. They are looking at the mental state of the player, their player's background. It's not just their football data. It's many aspects of it, and they're monitoring of players. They're monitoring of players when they go on loan. The in-depth research they do before they place a player with a club is far better than us. We have so many. We're a bit better this season, but Spurs have had such a terrible history of sending our players out on loan when they're not even getting game time.
Let me ask you about that. Let's get off the debate about other teams. Bring back to Tottenham. Do you think that Tottenham's transfer policy has improved or regressed over the last 18 months?
Yeah.
You think it's regressed?
I just think that without going into too much detail, when they had the data was first brought in to link with Paratici, it was a case of Paratici doing his thing, the data department doing their thing and coming up with individual players. What I'm told is Johan Lang goes to the data companies and says, I want you to run the data on these said players. That is not how data works, right? Data works with trying to identify the players in the positions that the manager wants. So if the manager wants a monster six who can do X, Y, and Z, they have to use that data to come up with the players. And of those players, which of those players is the most likely to become available or they could get? Then going to Andrew or whoever the manager is, which one of these players, if we could get, would be your first choice, and then moving into doing that. What isn't the way to do the data is to your contacts, getting the contacts to find the player that you can have contact with people you know, and then running the data on those said players. That's not how it works. For me, Fabio Paratici, he brought in Bentancur and Kulu when we were going nowhere. Those two really changed our season. He brought in Mickey van der Ven. He brought in Destiny. He brought in... Look, he's made some mistakes. There's no doubt he's made some mistakes. But on the whole, the majority of the players that he's brought in have a resale value greater or as much as what we purchased them for.
But is that an inevitability?
Yes.
Sorry, John. Is that I'm not going to give him credit. I'm not going to give Lango or anyone else credit for that necessarily. Maybe there is credit. I want your take on it.
Give him credit for.
Yeah, but just if you're buying 18-year-olds, even if you're paying top money, unless they shit the bed, their inevitable value is going to go up anyway. Right?
Well, it hasn't happened for years. Look, you look at Tottenham historically. I mean, going back a long time. I mean, strip out the Luka Modric's and the Berbatovs and the Harry Kanes. On the whole, we're buying players and we're struggling to sell them for a profit, or most of the time we're selling them for a loss.
Yeah, but selling the historical data around selling players at Tottenham is obviously awful. But
look at Chelsea. Look at Chelsea. If you look at Chelsea historically, go back and look. If you look, go and look on Transfer Market, for example, on Chelsea and Arsenal, and I think we.
Well, Arsenal, I don't think Arsenal are a good case in point.
Well, I think you're wrong. If you look how much they got, 35 million for Iwobi, 30 something odd million for Nketiah, who can't even get a game for Crystal Palace. Look back on what.
Okay, but they spent 80 million on Pepe, didn't they?
My point is that these sales of 30, 35 million, big profits on what they spent, right, is the subsidy for going out and spending the big money. And that's what.
No, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you on that.
The same with Chelsea. Unfortunately, we don't have that. And suddenly we've woken up to the fact, if you have a conveyor belt of talent that's coming through, should that talent fail, there's a chance that you could get 25, 30 million. I mean, the fact that we got 20 million pounds for Oliver Skipp, someone should be getting a medal and a statue.
And 20 million for Harry Winks or whatever it was, right?
20 million for Oliver Skipp. You can't even get into the Leicester team.
Let me ask you. Let me pivot the conversation. The same conversation, but just different take. I hear you're not happy with Tottenham at the moment. You're not happy with Ange. I'm not happy with Ange. I'm not happy with Tottenham. But when I look at the squad, I am generally
it's bad. It's nowhere near as bad.
Nowhere near as bad. And for the most part, this pivot towards a youth strategy, I think, has yielded dividends. I think it's well overdue and it's been successful. However, what I want to ask you is, because I watch other people's channels when I can get access to the internet at the moment, and I see this notion of, like, I said this to you on a phone call earlier on today, Johnny. Everything at Tottenham's corrupt. Everything at Tottenham is poisonous to the core, right? Like the ownership is responsible for everything. Fuck them. Levy out, Enoch out, Ange out, Man out, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's got to go. Right? Everything at Tottenham is a shit show. We're 14th and it's a disgust. And whatever. At the same time, they say you can't spend 60 million quid in the summer on Matisse Tell. This notion that that Tottenham value other teams' youth talent at far higher values than we value our own, and that is manifested by the fact that we don't give our young players like Mikey more
that's
time.
Great. Yeah,
right, and that's fine. If you agree, you disagree. But two things can't be right at the same time. Everything at Tottenham cannot be poisonous and terrible if at the same time you're saying our youth team is better than the overextended, ridiculous overvaluation of other players from other teams. So if Matisse Tell isn't worth 60 million, which I agree with, and we should be playing Mikey Moore instead, then our youth system can't be as bad as, and by proxy of that, everything can't be poisonous and rotten to the core at Tottenham. Like people
there's good and listen, there's good and bad, and I said a long while ago with Dave, going back quite a while now, when Paratici was ripping up the book there and reinstating and getting rid of all the shit and restructuring our whole academy, that the dream is that, look, we're all impatient, especially me. I'm older, right? The younger ones are even more impatient than me. But I'm telling you, as far as I'm concerned, that when you have a conveyor belt of talent, which is something Spurs have never had, we're not like Chelsea, we're not like Man City, we're not like Arsenal. It will get to the stage I said in 18 months, 2 years time, whereby we're getting all this, Mikey Moore and this player and that player. I won't go through them all. Callum Oluwesi, I could list them all. But my point here is to get to the stage where these players are coming into the first team and they're filling in spaces that when we come to the window, whether it be the summer window or January window, we only need to buy 2 players. Then we'll be in a position where we can go out and spend 80, 100 million pound on a player, because we're not having to buy 5 players and 6 players and still always being short. I mean, when the transfer window closed in the summer, we all thought we were short of a goalkeeper, short of a left back, short of a creative midfielder, short of a number 6. And we started the season like that. Now, imagine if you're producing 3 or 4 positions within your academy. That means that you've got more money to go and fill in the blanks in other positions and spend significant quantities of cash for better talent. Right now, we're trying to spread £100 million, £150 million in a window and spend that on 5-6 players, trying to spend 20 million and 30 million pounds when really we need the 50 millions and the 60 millions. But Matthias Tell, for me, isn't that player. I would have gone and bought Liam Delap before I would have bought Matthias Tell, personally.
Well, we haven't bought him yet. But the question is, if Matthias Tell isn't worth 60, how much is he worth? And is his value inflated because, I guess the question was, that Tottenham ownership or the people that make the decisions somehow value the talent of other teams' youth development higher than we value our own. Like, if Matthias Tell is worth 60, what is Mikey Moore worth? And why hasn't he played for? Why has he been sidelined by Ange Postecoglou? Is it because Ange doesn't give a shit about anything but his job right now, and he looks at the squad and thinks, I need players that have proven it? Because Mikey Moore, I said this to you earlier as well, Johnny, right? Mikey Moore is just turned 17, and look, he's a massive talent for sure. But at the same time, how many times does he look? If you're old enough, you're good enough. But if you're going to be thrown into the first team, you have to be judged on first team standards. I don't care whether you're 17 or 27. And I'd look at Mikey Moore and think, I can count on the number of one hand how many performances that he's had where he's really.
Well, he's hardly played. Hang on. He's hardly played. He got an assist against Everton. He got an assist. Was it AZ? I can't remember. He got the goal.
He did really well against AZ. He won the penalty. I think it was, right?
He got the goal as well. Look, the thing is, I'll tell you something that's quite interesting, and you can look back, and this isn't like me, Mr. Hindsight, as Ange likes to call it. After the Everton game in 2024, I think it was. Yeah, Everton 2024. Ange turned around and he said, you know, what about the youth? He said that none of the youth are good enough to play for us. Right? That did not go down very well with the hierarchy when you've spent a significant amount of time and a significant amount of money recruiting. Not only that, what sort of message does it send when your academy kids are winning the under-16s, the under-17s, the under-18s, the under-21s? They're smashing all levels. That is a bad message, right? Then you fast forward to the Arsenal game. Well, it's a special game. It's not a special game. It's like any other game, right? It's no different. It's just a game of football that we want to win. Then I'll fast forward to the Manchester City game where he had his rant after the game that he didn't understand. He's found things out inside and outside this club in the last week that has made him reevaluate everything, right? Now, what he was referring to was the fans, because we didn't want Arsenal to win the cup and he was win that Man City to lose that game. You know, many fans wanted Man City to win the league and not Arsenal. He was furious at that, but it was no fury about us going 3-0 down against Arsenal at home when we all want to win. For us, that was the big game. And had we beaten them, we wouldn't be having that conversation. But the other conversation was that he was told that he has to embrace the kids, right? So after that Man City game and the rant and all the rest of it, he threw in Mikey Moore against Sheffield United and a couple of other games. Then we're fast forward to the pre-season. And I see Jamie Donnelly's going on tour. Hip, hip, hooray. Jamie's going to get some game time.
They played him left back.
Yeah. Right? What's he doing? He's playing him at left back, right? Okay. I've seen Jamie play a lot of games. This is a player that will play any position that he's asked to play. But he ain't a left back, right? We've seen how he's playing for Orient. My point is, I don't believe he's ever been someone that believes or embraces the youth. I personally, I haven't been to anywhere near the amount of games this season for under 19, under 18 and under 21s youth games as I went to last season. I hold my hand up for that one. The circumstances have not allowed me. But the people I speak to and the games that I saw last season, I never once saw Ange Postecoglou at a single game. Not once. So I don't believe
he doesn't. Yeah, they had this debate on.
I saw Pochettino
on
at the games. I saw Pochers at games, right?
Yeah,
I think Martin Joel at games.
They had this debate on TalkSport this week, and they said it's not just a Tottenham thing. This is a thing that is like pervasive across the Premier League. Managers are not afforded enough time in their contract, in their tenure, to really give a shit about the youth system. Because they're sitting there going, well, why do I care about someone who's 15 years old or 16 years old? Because I'm not going to be here in 3 years' time. So I'm not going to waste my time going to watch another 21 team on a Wednesday night when it's probably more pertinent for me to be watching, Alkmaar in the Champions League or whoever Ajax or whatever.
Listen, the thing is, what we're talking about is he can get down there, but he did mention at one stage. I don't know if it was Mikey Moore or some of the kids, that he doesn't know whether he will be there to witness the end game for these kids, the maturing. He did mention that a few months ago, which is a fair enough point. But I don't believe that he's a true developer of talent. When I look at Mauricio...
I don't know that's a Tottenham thing, mate. I think most managers don't bother with looking at the 15-year-olds.
I look at Mauricio Pochettino, what he did at Southampton and what Mauricio Pochettino did at Tottenham, and I believe that he is one of those coaches. I'm not saying they all are, but there are certain coaches who will be willing to...
If they're given a long enough contract and they're given reassurances. And you know what? Ange just had more rope. And just had a lot more rope than the majority.
Is Eddie Howe's job under? Look at Miley. Look at Kobe Mainu. Look at the kid they brought in from Arsenal, the Arsenal striker who can't stop banging in the goals. Look at Heaven, an 18-year-old centre back who
Nwaneri, or whatever his name is.
Nwari, Skelly, right? So
these are players that have stepped up.
Yeah, but they've got to be given the chance, Sean. That's the problem. And you're quite right in exactly what you say there, that the jeopardy of losing your job is far greater than embracing and keeping everyone happy and playing some kids. Whatever.
Right. And do you think that Mikey Moore, put aside his age, because as a Tottenham fan...
On the bench for certain games, yes. And given minutes, yes. I think at AZ Alkmaar away, when he sat on that bench...
I don't disagree with you, but I'm asking the question. I don't disagree with you.
I don't believe every game he should be playing. No, I think it's a development game, right? And I think when you look at AZ Alkmaar, when we're away and we couldn't unlock them and it was shambolic, and you've got a kid who had a fantastic second half when we played them at White Hart Lane, that he could have been given 15, 20 minutes to at least have had an attempt to do it. But he didn't. And for me, that is demoralising for a kid who thinks he's on the way to getting games and he's part of the setup and suddenly he's not. And now he's playing in the under-21s.
Yeah, it's horrendous. I hear you on that. I definitely think that it's not going to bode well for his confidence.
What message does that send to the rest of the academy?
Well, but I hear you on that. It sends a bad message that you're getting cock blocked, essentially, or minute blocked, whatever. But at the same time, the manager, it's human nature. You're gonna sit there and go, I need to pick the team that's going to keep me in my job. And whether or not he's had a tap on the shoulder from Daniel Levy that says, listen, we've just paid £10 million as a loan fee for Matisse Tell, who's 19. He's only a couple of years older, but he's still a young guy. And whether or not we're going to pay £55 million, we need to figure out right now whether he's worth that expense. So therefore play him. Whether that's happened or whether it's just a case of, that Postecoglou is sitting there thinking, well, Matisse Tell and Odebear, that aren't that much older, are, I have more faith in them because they've proven it than I do Mikey Moore. I don't disagree with you, by the way, that he should have more minutes than he does. I'm playing devil's advocate, but at the same time, I would sit there and I would make the argument that just because you're 16, just because you're 17 years old, if you're old enough, you're good enough. You put the age to one side, and Ange Postecoglou is sitting there looking at his squad that is a recovering group of injured players that are now coming back to their full strength, and he's sitting there thinking, how much has, just because Mikey Moore is 16, 17, and he's a wonderful talent for the future. Again, it harks back to this notion of the guy before the guy. But ultimately, right now, has Mikey Moore done that much in a first team shirt? Put aside his age, because at the end of the day, you can only pick 11 players. Has he done that much that warrants more minutes than he's got? And I would argue, not really.
Well,
I don't think he has.
Listen, I disagree in certain games, right? He came on against Everton when we were dog shit and created a chance and got an assist. What I object to is seeing Timo Werner come on and play a game when he's being sent back and he's not part of the future, and you will put him on the pitch and the game ahead of Mikey.
Well, because Ange doesn't give a flying fuck about next season.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
But that's the compromise, right? Like this is why when people make this argument, when fans make this argument about like he's not a player, he's not a manager signing. You didn't back the manager. It's a club signing. This is what Conte said about Jed Spence, the fucking idiot, right? Ultimately, the club have to juggle two balls. One is for the here and now, one is for the future. But the manager doesn't give a flying fuck. And in this day and age, which is different, and believe it or not, mate, the average tenure of a manager, when it wasn't that long ago that Pochettino was the manager of Tottenham. Back then, the average tenure of a Premier League manager was 2.2 years. Now it's months. Not even that. It's 14 months. 14 months. Last season, there was more sackings than ever before in one season.
But
right?
But the thing is, when
these managers don't give a fuck. Ange even said it. Ange said it, right? As much as he's a fucking arsehole for saying it, he said it. I will move on and get another job. So why does he give a fuck about Mikey Moore? He doesn't.
I want this clown out of the club because he's sitting there. This is the guy who signed a player who no one wanted in the January transfer window. He didn't perform well, and he's re-signed him. Then he slags him off against Tamworth, saying he was horrendous and called him out, and then starts playing him over a kid who's showing promise when this is the guy that's going. And, he's dragged off Bissouma. I think his fourth game that Bissouma's come off at half-time. His third or fourth game he's come off at half-time.
Bissouma's an absolute appalling turnover.
And let me tell you something. When he walked past us, Bissouma walked past us at half-time. I was about 4 or 5 rows from the front. He walked past us. He was all right. He was going like that with hands, right, when he was walking past us. Brendan Johnson was like this when he was coming past us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll hold off again at half-time. My point is, when you're doing that, to me, you're sending a bad message again to the fans. What you're saying is you've signed a guy, you've got it wrong. You've told everyone you want him, you think he's got a good lot to offer, Timo. He doesn't perform. You re-sign him. He doesn't perform. You play him again over Mikey Moore against Tamworth. I thought we played some of the kids. He plays him. He's absolute dog shit, right? You slag him off. And then the next thing you know, he gets injured. And who do? You play him over Mikey Moore, who's shown progression, who's had a great game against Elfsborg, right? He did very well against AC.
Is it not? I hear you, mate. But is it not reasonable for a guy who thinks his job is on the line to look at Timo Werner and go, he obviously rates Timo Werner on some level, even though he called him out for the lack of effort, right? But he obviously rated him enough to say, I'd rather have maybe Ange is just fucking that deluded that he equates value on paper to value on the pitch, which is on paper the guy's getting paid 180 grand a week, right? And therefore he's a better player than Mikey Moore, who's getting paid 10 grand a week or whatever he's getting paid.
Right.
But so again, we can sort of dissect what that means about Ange, but at the end of the day, is it not unreasonable for Ange to sit there and say, Mikey Moore will be great for the next manager, but he ain't that good right now that he commands the spot. And it's no disgrace against Mikey Moore for not being that good relative to 25-year-olds when you're 17. It's not. I'm not calling out Mikey Moore. I'm just saying that when you're playing in the first team football, it doesn't matter whether you're 17 or 70.
My biggest worry, Sean,
he isn't Wayne Rooney and he isn't Michael Owen.
No, I didn't say he was Wayne Rooney. What I'm saying to you is, we've gone to a lot of trouble, right? And a lot of time and a lot of effort to restructure in the academy. They won the under-16s, they won the under-18s, they won the 19s, won the 21s, won the cup, won the league, right? Producing great talent. What is the point if they're being cop blocked right here? And I'm saying, if this manager is to stay at this club, I feel that come the summer, a lot of our talent will leave.
But does Ange Postecoglou give a fuck about that?
No, he doesn't. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying that the club, I think, have made a fucking mistake. And they're going to make a mistake, and I think they're going to regret it. Someone like Josh Keeley, listen, I like Kinski, he done great, whatever. But when you see someone like Josh Keeley, who's ripping up trees and performing fantastic,
at League One level, yeah,
as is Luca Gunter, why are we bringing in another keeper to block the path of Josh Keeley? Do I really want to see in 3 years' time Josh Keeley
I've got a theory on that.
Playing for a top club when he could have been playing for us because we brought someone else in to block the path?
I hear you on that. Okay, but again, playing devil's advocate, because I don't disagree with anything you're saying. By the way, I agree with you on all the things you're saying. I'm just saying I'm taking it from a different perspective here. The other perspective is if you were to hear in the zeitgeist through your friends or through the media or whatever else, if you were to hear a different scenario, which is Ange turned around and said, I wanted to play this, that, and the other, this guy, that, because I think they're going to do a better job, whether that's Timo Werner or someone else, and Daniel Levy tapped him on the shoulder, just like
Tim Sherwood
and Harry Kane, right? Yeah. Just like that, or just like whatever happened with Mourinho 6 days before a final, when Mourinho wanted to play his best 11 and Daniel Levy said, no, top four is a bigger priority. You fuck that off and you keep the best players available for the game against whoever it was on the Sunday, right? If that came out in the zeitgeist, that Ange Postecoglou was cock-blocked by Daniel Levy, because Daniel Levy said, no, you have to play Mikey Moore, because if you don't play Mikey Moore, then he's going to put in a transfer request before his 18th birthday, and then we're going to get the equivalent of whatever Simon Jordan had to suffer for John Bostock 20 years ago. The fans would be in fucking uproar that Daniel Levy was stepping in and was cop blocking the manager because of future priorities versus the here and now.
Can I just tell you right now, if it transpired that Daniel had stepped in and told him to play Mikey Moore over Timo, right, and he refused, I would actually, I've got to be honest.
I know you would. You celebrate it. You'd be on board. Yeah, I know you would, and so would everyone else, right? But that is a cherry picking. That's a cherry picking of the narrative, right?
But what we're seeing with our own eyes, Sean. I'm only going by.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. My point is the principle of the manager has to manage and the owner should own, right? And that's it, right? And so
that's the way it should be. I agree, but you do not go out and come out and chat shit and say none of my youth are good and none of the youth are good enough, right? That demoralizes the youth. It sends the wrong message to the youth when their aspiration from 5 years age, 6 years of age, or what have you, is to progress. You know, when you look at Callum Uluwesi and Mikey Moore, who've been at the club since 5, 6 years of age, they come through England and all the rest of it. You know, I don't know.
You understand what I'm saying? By the way, guys, there's 800 people. I don't know where you are. You might be on Football Inc. You might be on Spurs Talk Show. You might be on Twitter. I don't know where you are. There's 810 people watching or something like that. Incredible for a comeback show. I'm sure there's not that many people watching on Spurs Talk Show. But if you are watching on any of the other platforms, then get over to Football Inc. Link is in the description. Jonny and I's sort of venture that's been stuttered in its start because of my problems. But make sure you get over there and smash the link is in the description. Please make sure that if you're watching this on Spurs Talk Show or on Twitter, that you get over to Football Inc. and you hit the subscribe, because Jonny and I are going to be doing more of these sort of tete-a-tetes over on Football Inc. and on Spurs Talk Show. Obviously, I'll be back doing my my monologues, my walking with Bugsy very soon. But Johnny, we've been going for 2 hours. Yeah, go on, mate. Go on, crack on.
Can I just add here? Just think, there's Luca Williams-Barnett, right? Okay. There is no doubt he's a super talented player, okay? Guys, he's 16, right? He ain't going into the first team, right? He's not going into the first team. I can't tell you the amount of players I've seen over the years where he's going to be the next big thing. You know, Marcus Edwards, Josh Onomar, right? Reece Nelson, okay? I've been around it. I've seen it. I've heard it, okay? The jump from that level to the next level isn't an easy journey, right? So, I've been victim of that myself, seeing players come through and thinking that they're going to be the next big thing. And it's not just about technical ability. It's about application. It's about distraction. Will you be distracted by, the outside noise that's around football when, agents or whoever come along and promise you all the gold you can eat? Football's littered with players that, should have been, might have been, but weren't. And then you have players that they never predicted to have they didn't have the talent of certain players, but what they had was great mental fortitude and have carved out a fantastic career for themselves in football, and a long career. That is the difference. Sean, I was just going to say, if you could put up my my details a second, I was just going to say, I've just started to see my Talking Tottenham 1882 on Insta. If you are on TikTok, I've got the same Talking Tottenham 1882. I lost both my TikTok and my Insta account in January there, one with 10,000 and one with about 7,000. And I've had to start all over again. Talking Tottenham is on the way, but I just started my TikTok one. So it's Talking Tottenham 1882. If you get a chance to get there and give us a follow, I've been posting, match day videos and stuff like that, and things that have gone on during the game. But
make sure you get over there, guys. Go over, if you are on Instagram hound, then look up Talking Tottenham 1882 and make sure you follow Johnny. And also on Twitter, he's a Goliath over on the old X platform. Spurs Talk Show is still on Twitter, but I haven't even got my logins anymore, so I don't know what's going on there. And I'm not on Spurs Talk Show. I was on Instagram, but I lost access to that a long time ago as well. So I lost access to most things. But YouTube is going strong. So is Football Inc. Make sure you get onto Football Inc. Link is in the description.
2 hours. We talked to ourselves. I mean, Sean and I, when we get started, we start in one direction and we end up in the north.
Doesn't matter where we go. We'll always end up at the North Pole. We're always up there. Listen, Johnny, we're going to come back. I don't know if you're free tomorrow or not. I've not spoken to you, but this 2 hours is enough for now, I reckon. And lots to talk about. And we'll be back, guys. Once again, I apologise for my absence from YouTube for the last few weeks. You know what's going on. I'm doing my best to mitigate and to navigate, but it's a hard. In fact, let me just ask you guys: if everyone could do me one favour, let me see if I can. How do I do this? Let me see if I can share my screen. I'm not sure I can do that. Settings? No. Is it settings? No. Hang on.
The big reveal.
Instagram, that's not it. I don't know what it is. I was going to ask you for a favour. Do me a favour, guys. Do me a favour. If you've got you've probably all got a Gmail account, right? Go to your Gmail account, and in the bottom right hand side, go to your inbox, and on the bottom right hand side of your inbox, it should say something like, at the very bottom, last account activity X minutes ago. And then let me know if it says open in one other location. And if it does, click on the details, right? And then on the details, my screen says authorized application, that I've authorized some application. And when you click on show details, nothing comes up. Like it's a hidden application. And I really want to know, really want to know whether this is just something that I'm going through, and that hidden application is one of these back doors. There's a million back doors to my access right now, but go to your Gmail account on whatever device you're looking at. Go to your inbox, and then on the bottom right hand side, it should say opening, or hopefully it says opening one other application, and it will have a details thing. Click on that, and please let me know whether or not when you click on that, it pops up a screen that shows the other detail. And when you click on show details, if it says if it doesn't give anything, let me know. If it does, then you're not going through what I'm going through. And one of the back doors that they have is that they've added some app that I don't know, I don't have access to, and I can't even see the details of. Let me know if you can see it. I can't show you on the screen. Next time I get a proper device and it's not an iPad, I'll show you on a screen share what I'm talking about. But that's one of the problems that I have right now. Is I think that these people have got whenever I log in, that they have some hidden application that they can see exactly what I'm doing. And if that's the case, then unless I can find a resolution to it, I might have to just basically close the account down and start again. Anyway,
hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay. Sean, it's been a pleasure, and to everyone who's, if anybody, or for anyone who's been out there and listening to us ramble on for the last 2 hours, thanks very much for taking the time to come along and listen to us.
No, hang on. I don't get anything. I don't get anything. No, this account is open in one other location. Let me know, Invert the Wing, what other location it looks like. Does it give you any information? Because mine says that, and when I click on details, it's there's no detail. There's no detail, which I'm pretty sure is part of the problem. But yeah, guys, we're going to leave it there. Johnny, love you to pieces, my man. Good debate about Brighton and Brentford and Bournemouth. I believe that all those teams. I believe that Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth and Brighton. I think that they are all.
We've gone from politics. You've mentioned 9/11. Adolf Hitler. You mentioned Adolf Hitler, 9/11, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Brighton. We've
there you go.
We've done with nothing like that on my email. Right.
Yeah.
Bye, folks. And,
there you go, guys.
Good one. See you later.
Appreciate you all. See you tomorrow. Take care. Love you. Like, subscribe, and comment on this and on Football Inc. And also make sure you get down to Talking Tottenham on Instagram and Johnny H32 on Twitter. See you again, guys. Take care. As always. Bye bye.